Hey guys, today I want to share with you a method that I show all my students for learning all the notes on the fretboard. You know, when I first started playing guitar, I was into Eddie Van Halen, and all I really cared about was like learning Van Halen tunes and how Eddie made certain sounds with his guitar, and which is all good and everything. But later on, whenever I got into improvisation and jazz, uh, you know, it became apparent that one thing that was really lacking in my playing was like knowing the notes on the neck. I tried to do everything I possibly could to not have to learn that, like memorizing, you know, patterns and so forth, and which memorizing patterns is not bad, but I found myself, working myself to death because I just simply wouldn't, take the time to learn the notes on the neck. And anyway, so I developed a method uh, that's really helped myself and then my students, accomplish this task because it's overwhelming when you think about you got six strings, and then on every string you have all these notes, and how do you memorize them all? So here's the method. Okay, we're going to start with the D string. Why the D string? Because I find that most players, they pretty much know the E strings and the A string, and their weak strings are the D, G, and the B string. So we're going to start with the D string. Okay, before we get started with that, I want to talk about something else, which is the circle of perfect fourths. Okay, the reason why is because we're going to use this circle or cycle as a tool to exercise our note recognition ability. Okay, so what is the circle of perfect fourths? Well, first of all, a perfect fourth interval, like if I were to play it on the guitar, for example, would be like from D. Let me turn my guitar on here. Turn up the volume from D to G. Okay, it's two whole steps followed by a half step. So this is a perfect fourth interval. Or in the guitar, in standard tuning, is tuned in perfect fourth intervals. Except for from the G to the B string, that's a major third or two whole steps. Okay, so this cycle of perfect fourths, it's C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, B, E, A, D, G. Okay, well that's a lot to remember, right? So how are you going to remember all that? Okay, well I'm going to help you out with that. Okay. First of all, let's think of the word bead, like a bead necklace or a bead of water, a water droplet bead. It's spelled B-E-A-D. Now, if you can spell that, you've got, 90% of this thing memorized already, pretty much, okay? So, anyway, so imagine a bead necklace. Okay, we're going to use a visualization technique that's going to help you memorize this cycle of perfect fourths. Okay, so in your mind's eye, imagine a bead necklace. Okay, so most necklaces have a clasp up at the top. Okay, now this clasp is going to symbolize the notes C and F. Okay, now after the clasp, which symbolizes C and F, we have a row of flat beads. Okay, they're flattened out. Imagine flattened out beads. Okay, and that's going to be symbolic of B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, and G flat. Okay, afterwards you have a row of natural round beads. Okay, and that's going to be symbolic of B, E, A, D, and G. So again, we have the clasp, right, which is C and F. It's symbolic of C and F. And then we have the row of flat beads, which is B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, and G flat. Then we have the row of natural beads, B, E, A, D, G, and we're back up at the top. Okay, so by now you should probably have that memorized. Most students that I encounter, once I, show them this visualization technique, they've got it down. Okay, so so we're going to just put that cycle on the shelf for now, and let's move on let's get these notes down on the neck. All right. The first step that I use is let's go up the string in the key of C. Now, the key of C, as you hopefully know already, has no sharps and flats. So as we go up the guitar string, in this instance, it's the D string, okay, we look at all the natural notes and where they lay out on the fretboard. So you have D, E, F, G, A, B, and C, and D lastly. Okay, so now here's the thing. As you go up the neck, right, you want to think about where these notes occur in regards to where the dots are on the neck, and also where things are that you already know, such as chords, where you tune the guitar, etc. And we're going to use these things as mnemonics to help us memorize these natural notes, where the natural notes are. So, example, okay, so most of us out there already know this is the D string, so that's like in our long-term memory, okay? All right, now what you might not know is this is the E note. Now, so what's going to help us remember this is the E note? Well, you probably know this is the E chord, okay? So when you think of the E note on the D string, think of your E chord. Now let's look at where that is again, okay? It's on the 2nd fret of the D string, okay? So that E chord is going to help us remember where that E note is. Okay, so after E, we have F, all right? And that's where your F chord is. And you probably know that already, all right? You probably already know the F chord. Now, if you don't, okay, you would say, okay, well, I'll tie my F note to the E note, okay? You might think that F is E's neighbor. It's a half step away, all right? Okay, so after that, we have the G. G at the 5th fret on a dot, okay? Now, what's significant about this as well? Well, this is where we tune the guitar, right? So when we think about where is G on the D string, well, that's where we tune the guitar. Okay, what's after G? A. Now, A occurs at the 7th fret on a dot, okay? And so, what can help us remember that this is the A note? Well, on most all the strings at the 7th fret, the note that is the adjacent string, okay, the adjacent string below is the octave. So here's, you got the A string, and then you have the A here at the 7th fret. And this happens everywhere except on the B string, because, again, the B string is a major third above the G string. Okay, now, if that's not helping you, okay, think of something like, what would help you remember that A is at the 7th fret? Like A7. There's a sports car called the Audi A7. All right, not that I own one, but, I was trying to figure out, what mnemonic could I use to help my students remember this. And so I went on Google and I typed in A7, and that was one of the first things that came up, the Audi A7 sports car. So maybe that will help you remember that the A is here at the 7th fret. Okay, after that we have B, which is at the 9th fret. Okay, B9, right? What's going to help us remember that B is at the 9th fret? Well, how about a B9 vitamin? Okay, so we've got our B9 vitamin right here at the 9th fret. Okay, now a half step away from B is C. So we can tie C to B in the sense of C is B's neighbor. It's a half step away. So when we think of where is C, well, if we remember B9 vitamin and we know that C is B's neighbor, okay, that's going to help us remember that C is right here at the 10th fret. Okay, another thing is C is a whole step down from D, and we know that, or most of you out there probably know the notes repeat here at the 12th fret. All right, that this is D. Okay, so we could just remember that, okay, C is going to be a whole step away from D. So the point is to establish some memory devices, some mnemonics, okay, to help us remember where the natural notes are. All right, so once we've established that, the next thing is we're going to take the cycle of diatonic fourths in the key of C, which is C, F, B, E, A, D, G. We're going to use that as a tool to exercise our note recognition. Okay, so if you earlier memorized the cycle of perfect fourths using that visualization technique of the bead necklace, all right, just imagine this. We're just taking the natural part of that cycle, C, F, B, E, A, D, G, and we're going to use that to exercise, again, the note recognition, exercise our ability to identify the notes that we just talked about. You know, okay, so what would we do here? All right, we just do this. C, F, B, E, A, D, G. Okay, and that's the cycle. Now, if you're having trouble, you might do this. Okay, slow it down and say, okay, I know this is C because C is B's neighbor. All right, the B9 vitamin. Okay, F, I know this is F because it's tied to E, or, you know, the F chord, right? So we're saying our mnemonics as we play this, all right? Okay, B, all right, we have the B9 vitamin. E, that's where our E chord is. Okay, A, the Audi A7 sports car. D, I know this is D because it's in my long-term memory. And then G, that's where I tune the guitar. Okay. All right, so after that, you want to maybe put a metronome on, the slowest setting, you know, like 40 beats per minute, or you could time yourself. And if you time yourself, you establish a time, you know, that it takes you to do this, you know, C, F, B, E, A, D, G. And once that time is established, then try to beat that time. Okay, race against the clock, so to speak, okay, to make it fun, like a game. All right, so once you've established where all the natural notes are, you've exercised your note recognition with that cycle of diatonic fourths in the key of C. Now, diatonic, that just means according to the scale. Okay, that's all that means. So we're talking about the cycle of fourths according to the C major scale. All right, not the cycle of perfect fourths. Anyway, all right, so we've got that established. Now we want to identify where the flats are. Okay, now this should be pretty easy. Once you know where the natural notes are, the flats are just going to be a half step below. Okay, so we're going to take the order of flats that appear in the cycle of perfect fourths that you memorized earlier. We're going to use that as a tool to exercise our note recognition, okay, of the flat notes. All right, and then the order of flats is B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, and G flat. The word bead, okay, with G at the end. All right, so let's do that. So you got B flat, okay, then E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat. Okay, and again, you can take, you know, your knowledge of where the natural notes are, and just say, okay, well, to find the flat note, I just go a half step below that. And again, you might want to time yourself, establish that time, and then try to beat that time. And again, you might want to use the metronome. All right. So once we've established where the natural notes are, we've exercised that, then the flats, right? And by the way, you know, I had a student of mine, I showed him this exercise, and he's like, when are we going to learn the sharps? Well, the sharps are inharmonic with the flats. For example, B flat is the same thing as A sharp, okay? So when you're learning the flats, you're also learning the sharps. Okay. So anyhow, once we've exercised the naturals, then the flats, then we're going to use that whole cycle of perfect fourths. We're going to exercise that. All right. So that's going to be like this: C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, B, E, A, D, G. And when you do this, you want to call out the notes as you're playing them. And then another thing I recommend is use one finger to do it. Don't get into doing, I mean, it's not wrong or, bad to do that, but I would just recommend using one finger to do this. And don't play this exercise like you would a lick per se, because that defeats the purpose. And what I mean by that is, I had a student that I showed this exercise to, and came back the next week, and I'm like, okay, so you got this down? He's like, yeah, and he played it for me, and he's, playing it like this, and I said, I started just kind of giving him a random pop quiz and asking him where the notes are, and he couldn't find them because he had just learned this thing like a melody or a lick, just kind of memorized the movements, as it were, and didn't really think about where the notes were. And I'm like, man, that defeats the whole purpose. You really want to think about, where these notes are. All right, well, I hope this has helped you, and you take this same idea, okay, and you apply it to all the strings. All right, so like for instance, the steps again are, you will play the key of C up the neck, and then as you play the key of C, you don't have to start on C. You would start with the open string, but as you play the notes, you want to identify again what things occur there that you already know, like whether it be chords, or you might come up with a mnemonic like we did with the Audi A7 or the B9 Vitamin. Okay. If you'd like more help with this, just contact me via email and schedule a lesson appointment, and we'll get on Skype and I'll help you continue. Another thing, I cover this in my Fit instructional DVD. I show like all the strings, and yeah, I hope this helps you. If it does, shoot me an email, let me know. And so thanks for joining me, and see you soon.